We didn't do anything special.
Same Blitzy platform that all our enterprise customers use.
We scored a 66.5% on SWE-Bench Pro.
Welcome everyone, my name is Michael Montanaro. I am a forward deployed engineer with Blitzy, and today we'll be celebrating a massive milestone that the company, Blitzy, and software engineering autonomously around the world has achieved. I will not spoil anything now, but I would like to introduce the members of our research team. We've got Dr. Neeraj and Priya.
Hi, I'm Priya. I'm a research engineer at Blitzy. I work with a team of 5 passionate people, Jack, David, Simon, and Yash, including me. I primarily involved running Blitzy against the SWE-Bench Pro benchmark.
Right. And my name is Neeraj Deshmukh. I'm a senior member of the technical staff here at Blitzy. I work on the engineering team, on the product itself. I also am part of our go-to-market organization, helping some of our biggest customers integrate Blitzy into their SDLC. And I also head our research department here. So the SWE-Bench Pro benchmark work that we are talking about here is exactly in my line of work.
Priya, we'll start with you and the benchmark specifically. What is SWE-Bench Pro and how exactly does it differ from other benchmarks that people may have heard about so far?
Yep. So before going to SWE-Bench Pro, there is this benchmark called SWE-Bench Verified, which has a 500 tasks. So that verified is contaminated because it has all the data in the training sets. So if you give the model and if you see any of the scores in it, it is going to perform well anyways because it has already learned the training set. You could just imagine like a student acing his exams just by memorizing and just not knowing what the subject was. So that's SWE-Bench Verified. Whereas the Scale research team, they came up with SWE-Bench Pro with 1865 tasks across 41 active repositories. Those are copyleft, which means that they don't get access easily. So the model doesn't know where the data is coming from. So any model that runs on SWE-Bench Pro is truly tested on how the model is reasoning and not by the memorizing capabilities. So I think SWE-Bench Pro is contamination free, and also OpenAI has made an announcement in February 23 saying that we are endorsing SWE-Bench Pro and not SWE-Bench Verified. So that's how SWE-Bench Pro is important to us.
There's also seems to be a large discrepancy between the number of tasks in the two tests, Pro versus Verified. Could you speak a little bit about what exactly a task is in this benchmark?
Of course. So a task is nothing but collective GitHub issues, I would say. So it is going to reason how well the model understands a real world problems and it is going to solve. Let's say, for example, if there is an ongoing enterprise issue, and if you give a model like Claude or any of Gemini or OpenAI, any such models, you are just asking the model to solve and code it and not think about the capability how well it can solve it. So it has all the training in that, and it's just that GitHub issues that you work on day-to-day basis.
So would that mean that the prompts that are used to get the models to autonomously work on the software engineering tasks, are those just straight from the GitHub issues as well, or is there any formatting that goes into these?
Perfect. So those are coming from the data set that SWE-Bench Verified and Pro has. They have the prompt in it, and they say this is a prompt and this is the model that we have, and they have run this on their scaffolding, and they have their own harness, which is the testing framework basically. So that is the testing framework that they have, and they are going to run this in their model, and then they evaluate and come up with the scores, whether it is a pass or a fail.
So this is a much more comprehensive benchmark, it seems.
Exactly. Yes, it is. It is a much more tougher benchmark to solve, I would say, because it's super hard for any models to solve. So all the frontier models have scored approximately 23%. So it's like all the top models out there, it's like it just has been very less score when the research team came up with this model.
So Neeraj, we heard a lot about how comprehensive of a benchmark this is, but why exactly should an engineering team, or more specifically a CTO, care about these numbers? How does it map directly to what an engineering team would care about?
That's a great question. So, I mean, every enterprise, every software development organization deals with their own set of issues, problems that they want to solve, and those are unique to their organization, like I said. But what benchmarks give you is basically a more objective framework that acts as a proxy for real world challenges. And so you see a lot of different entities, models, agentic frameworks, they're all trying to tackle the same challenge across the board. And that gives you a more objective framework to kind of compare systems, compare models to see how well equipped they are to tackle some of these real world problems that are maybe not exactly the same, but pretty similar to what those companies are interested in doing. So that gives a very useful barometer for them to gauge the quality of the solutions that these AI-based systems are able to provide.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's also part of the benchmark where the repos, the projects that are selected, they are enterprise size, more or less.
That's right. So a lot of the repos that you see, especially as part of SWE-Bench Pro, these are quite large with like hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of lines of code. They have many different languages, a very large number of files, uh, different kind of levels of complexity, interrelationships. So all of that is very kind of relevant for companies who are trying to kind of do this kind of evaluation, because they very closely kind of mimic the conditions that they have encountered as part of their work. So if you get a really good score on these benchmarks, it essentially indicates that your system, the AI-based autonomous code generation system, is able to handle the real-world complexity that you would encounter with real-world problems. And more importantly, why SWE-Bench Pro matters is because, like Priya was saying earlier, previous benchmarks like SWE-Bench Verified have been gamed effectively. But with SWE-Bench Pro, you have more trust, more confidence, because it's not an easy benchmark to gain. You can believe that the results you get on SWE-Bench Pro are actually indicative of the AI system's real capabilities to solve the problem rather than to game the test.
So this benchmark would be a lot more testing the reasoning behind the model and the system within it, rather than
Absolutely.
as Priya
It
mentioned.
basically is a lot more credible in terms of kind of evaluating the capabilities of these autonomous code generation systems.
Yes. So we've heard a lot about the benchmarking, we've heard a little bit about the system, but I think everyone here really wants to know, what was the number?
Yes. So we scored a 66.5% on SWE-Bench Pro, the public subset of the bench one. Why does this matter? The previous best on this benchmark was a 59.1%. And if you look at kind of the history of improvements on that score that have happened over the last year or so that the benchmark has been around, Priya mentioned that the very early on, the results were like in the mid-20s. Soon enough, they kind of jumped up in the 40s and 50s. But like if you look at the last like 10 odd best scores, they are incremental. You're going from like 52 to 53 to 54 to 54 something to 55. And very recently we had the 59.1 score. And now Blitzy has effectively kind of made a quantum leap forward, like going from 59 to 66. And that's a pretty massive single step increase in the score. So this essentially demonstrates Blitzy's strength in solving these problems, where we are essentially, I wouldn't even call it bleeding edge. I think it's like beyond bleeding edge now, what we are doing here. And it's a very strong signal that the approach that Blitzy is taking to solve these problems is actually the way to go to deal with real-world, complex, enterprise-scale software generation.
And not to put you on the spot, but what do you feel like is that differentiator that has led to that almost 10% increase over the leading competitor?
So here is the fun part, right? We didn't do anything special for this benchmark. Everything that we ran for this benchmark, that's exactly what our customers are running today. We simply ran these problems through our standard platform and got these results. So there is no extra scaffolding. There is no special tricks. What you see in the Blitzy platform for our customers, for our users, that's exactly what we did for this. The secret sauce or the magic, as you might like to call it, is essentially the emphasis, number one, on understanding. So Blitzy will understand the entire code base upfront, spend a lot of time in planning how to solve the task, and how to validate that the generated code is actually functional and correct. And we trade a lot of inference time compute and just compute cycles themselves time to ensure that the generated code is of the best quality. And that kind of system two thinking is basically what makes the difference.
So Neeraj had mentioned that the benchmarking was run on the platform as it is for us, for our customers. Could you speak a little bit about what that means, why that's so important to bring up?
Yep. Actually, this is really important because all other frontier models have their own research labs, to conduct this evaluation and harness. They have their own scaffoldings and harness to evaluate these models. But we have run on the same Blitzy platform that all our enterprise customers use. Same agents, same architecture, same knowledge base pipeline. It's all the same. It's just that we have used Blitzy platform with all the 731 independent branches. We have taken that task as different 731 different branches and we have run across Blitzy platform. That's how we got the scope. No cheating. And literally, it's like, we had Quesma verified the agent trajectories and they said this was very clean and we did not use internet access as well. So it was just that we have really we have solved the problem of the real world, the enterprise scale systems. So this is really important for us as a team. And the 66.5 means that this is the same system that you're going to use as soon as when you sign up for today. So it's not another scheme or scaffoldings or other harness that we use to solve this problem. So it's the same platform that we are going to use.
Well, you did bring up a good point though about you didn't have internet access, and that is something that our clients and all of our code generations does have access to. So it's almost like Blitzy was a little bit handicapped during this benchmarking.
Exactly. Because we don't have our dedicated harness and we don't have our own scaffoldings, we just ran it on whatever SWE-Bench ran with other models. And we could achieve 66.5%. That is incredible.
Could you take me under the hood about this Blitzy architecture and what led to that 66.5%?
Certainly, and happy to do that. So the first thing that Blitzy does is, like I said, it ingests the entire code base. So the whole repo, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of lines of code, and it builds an internal representation of the knowledge that is embedded within that code, right? This knowledge is basically the underpinning of everything that Blitzy does afterwards. And so that could be building a new feature, fixing a bug, doing complete refactors, re-architecture, essentially a whole rebuild of the code, right? And the way it does that is by spending a lot of time upfront to plan the task out down to like every last bit of detail, to the file level, to the module level, to the function level, and coming up with a complete kind of systematic roadmap for how it's going to go from the current state of the code to the desired state of the code. Once it has that plan, then it will start executing on that using a vast army of autonomous agents, each of them specialized to do a particular task in terms of whether it's generating code, building, testing. So there is, at every step of that code generation, all of the verification is built into the system to ensure that the finished product, the end result of that process, which is the generated code, is production quality, it's functional, it builds, it behaves correctly based on what the requirements were. And if there were any success criteria defined in that initial prompt, then it will make sure that those are all met with. So the result of that process, therefore, is essentially code that is ready to be put into production. And that's what we see a lot of our customers do even today.
It almost feels like every Blitzy run is like hiring an entire engineering team for that one
Oh,
task.
absolutely. Like one of my favorite things to say is that Blitzy is like having a superpower developer on your team.
So Priya, could you walk me through on the process of completing this benchmark with the Blitzy platform? What exactly did that look like within the Blitzy platform? And you also mentioned the test harness a couple of times, and if you could just speak a little bit on that as well.
Of course. So there are 731 tasks, which is 731 GitHub issues based on the issue specificity. It is like it's either a bug or a feature. So Blitzy has this option where you can just add a feature or a bug, and you pull that particular branch, check out that branch, and you run Blitzy on that, and you get a PR. And you run this PR against the evaluation harness, and you see whether it is a pass or a fail with the evaluation harness itself. So I would say like this Blitzy evaluation harness, we don't have any specific harness with us, but what I found that, so there are some issues that the SWE-Bench Pro itself is failing in the golden patch. So I just raised a couple of issues where the some in one particular instance there was an issue where the golden patch also failed. So to be very specific about that, if we are able to Blitzy actually did solve those, and if you are able to get 4 more instances, and if you are able to pass that, we would get 6 more instances pass, which means our number is going to be 492 out of 731. Well, yeah.
Were there any other surprises along the verification process? I know you mentioned previously something to do with Quesma, the third-party validator that we use.
Yeah, exactly. So Quesma is our third-party validator who who looked at our agent trajectories and confirmed that everything is clean, and it is whatever the patches that we provided are that runs through the model, and that they have verified that. So they looked into 20 hardest problems, and they found that GPT 5.4 was not able to solve those 20 problems, and they were more close to it, but we could solve all those 20 hardest problems. That was a surprise that Quesma did, and like when they came back with these results, and we were like mind blown.
Was it surprising for you?
Of course,
yes.
it is. Of course, to see how Blitzy performed at all these hardest problems, and also looking at the trajectories, it was just mind blowing that we could solve a lot of problems and hardest problems that any of the top models or front end models didn't.
It's not surprising to me at all. I have a lot of faith in Blitzy's abilities to deal with this kind of issues.
I saw the nod over there. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Neeraj is very confident with that. So Neeraj, could you bring us back to earth a little bit? You spoke about how this would affect CTOs and engineering teams in general, but let's scale it out a little bit. How would this affect enterprises or companies in general?
Right. So most importantly, this demonstrates that Blitzy solves hard problems, like not pie problems, not gimmicks, like real world, difficult problems at scale, large code bases, complexities, hidden workflows. Blitzy can handle all of that, right? This is what we are demonstrating here, right? What that also means is this translates directly to faster development cycles, getting better quality code out there for our customers, which means that they go to market quicker. So they can compress their development time, their SDLC, effectively into a much shorter time frame, deliver better quality code in the process. So you're getting faster and better at the same time. Both of those things mean that you are essentially reducing your cost of delivering software, and you are going to do more releases, more frequent releases with more features in them. So essentially, you are scaling up your software delivery.
And that 66.5 that we've achieved is almost a confidence metric for
Absolutely. This is basically kind of giving you a microcosm of that big picture by showing how much better we are than anybody else or anything else out there in terms of autonomously generating software that is like production day.
And we had spoken in the past about that nearly 10% jump. Do you find that this is going to continue to happen as the SWE-Bench continues to be a popular benchmark. And Priya had mentioned that it started quite low percentage-wise. Do you see other tools as well as Blitzy continuing to push the boundaries there? Or?
I absolutely believe that will happen, and I want to see that happen also, because like every advancement that we make in kind of agentic abilities in terms of the core modeling abilities is good news for the advancement of the state of the art. It means that we can handle more difficult problems, different types of problems, and do a much better job of delivering better solutions than we can do today. Like today, Blitzy is at 66.5%. I want to see us be at like 85, 95, like 99, 100%. And I think that's what it's going to allow us to do.
And something that stands out to me about our current score of 66.5% is that they're mainly for bug fixes and add features in the same scope of individual developer work. Whereas one of the things that makes Blitzy so incredible to use is the fact that it will continuously run and validate on itself and not surface until the success criteria has been met. So that number, I guess, how do you map that number to Blitzy's impact at the scale that we've been seeing it affected in enterprises?
That's a really nice question. I guess the way to look at that would be to kind of think of these as examples of real world problems. And that's what SWE-Bench Pro started out to be. They also have a private subset which is actually like proprietary code bases where they have these kind of real world large scale problems that they want people to solve. Of course, that's a private benchmark, and so we essentially have to collaborate with Scale to do that. We have reached out to them to see if that's feasible as well. But what you get with this number is basically that confidence in Blitz's abilities to solve problems of that nature. And yes, we're talking about bug fixes, we're talking about like feature development, but the methodology that Blitzy uses in terms of having that understanding of the underlying code and then using that to plan in detail the approach to solving that problem, that is essentially applicable to any kind of software development task, whether that's a refactor, whether that's a greenfield development of a new product or a new feature. It could be something as simple but very useful as generating documentation or writing tests or doing security vulnerability mitigation, right? These things are routine for software developers, but they're not easy either, because finding those problems, understanding them, and then addressing them in a meaningful fashion is easier said than done. And Blitzy has been very good at doing those kind of tasks, and it's continuously getting better at that.
And you mentioned the scale, so it sounds like there's a potential new challenge on the horizon.
Absolutely. I mean, we are up for that. Like that's what the research team at Blitzy is here for, is to take on all of those challenges.
Based on the results, where do you see Blitzy heading in the current trajectory?
Like I said, 66.5% is great, but we should be able to do better, right? And I think one of the things I love benchmarks for is it not only tells us how good we are, it also tells us where we need to get better. And so there are a lot of learnings that are there to be captured for our research team that then we kind of go take to our product people, our engineering people, and say, hey, here are all the things that we did wrong. How can we fix those? How do we get better? How do we make Blitzy a more robust platform, a stronger platform? And so that's basically what we want to do now, is look at the other cases, the ones that we did not get, and figure out what went wrong and how to fix those.
So you're taking the failure cases and using it to improve how Blitzy does its debugging, does its triage and reasoning in general.
Exactly. And we don't really want to target like those individual failures. We want to see how those failures can be used to basically implement system-wide improvements in terms of how we approach the problem itself, right? Because we don't want to solve that one problem. We want to solve every problem like that.
And on the website, Blitzy is around an 80% autonomous platform. And autonomy in this case is a bit of a different definition than Copilots normally. It's going to run continuously for as long as it needs to. Do you see this work that the research team is doing helping to bridge that gap from 80 to 100?
Absolutely. That's basically our goal, is to get Blitzy to a point where it can generate as much quantum of work. When we talk about the 80%, it's not about we generate 80% of the code. We are saying we do 80% of the total work involved in getting that task finished from inception to deployment, right? So there will always be some work that may be needed by entities outside of the software development side. Could be about integration, could be about deployment, could be about something else. So those tasks will already be there, but the quality of the software that we generate, the code that is there, it has to be as functional and as robust and as production quality as we can make it.
Thank you so much for your time. And if you'd like to read more about SWE-Bench and the work that the Blitzy research team did, feel free to check it out at blitzy.com/blog.